All right, happy hour Friday. Thanks to Pete Thompson jumping on board here on the Sports Best. He's heading to the Phillies game. We're heading to talk a little football. Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports, of course, joins us Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And, man, you wrote a great piece over at CBS Sports this today, Jeff. This NFC East scheduling, as everybody's been kind of talking about how quirky the schedule is. Washington, 5 games inside the division. The Eagles play, 5 out of 6 games to close out the year inside the division. So what did you find out about why the NFL set up the majority of NFC East games in the months of November and December? What was the thinking there?
Well, Mike, it was pretty interesting. I figured it was just TV markets because, the NFC East does have 4 of the top 9 TV markets, 3 of the top 5, Dallas, Philadelphia, and New York. But it was more than that. They feel the NFC East is going to come down to the wire just like it has the last 3 years and the majority of the last decade. And they said they looked at the competitive factor in the division. So they clearly think that Washington, New York, Dallas, and Philadelphia are going to be in it at the end of the year, which makes a lot of sense. I don't like how there's that many division games that late in the season, but I understand the premise of it. If you put the Cowboys against the Eagles, if you put the Giants against the Cowboys, you put Washington against the Giants, Washington against Dallas, etc., you're going to have a close division finish. And I think that's just what this league is banking on. The NFC East is not a good division. They are getting better, but at the same time, we saw last year, they canceled each other out by playing those division games late in the year, and everybody was neck and neck going in the last 2 weeks of the season.
Now, Jeff, they said, and this is quoted in your article over at CBS Sports, at Jeff Kerr CBS, we generally like to see division games at the end of the season. We think the NFC East is going to be really competitive this season, so we're excited to see how it shakes out this year. So it didn't happen on purpose, but we didn't preclude it either. So it almost sounds like, because if you put any division and put 5 games, 4 games, 3 games between those opponents in the last month, you're going to get a competitive division. So they say we didn't do it on purpose, but we didn't preclude it. So it's almost like the NFC East became minor league baseball, where they're trying this out to see what kind of configuration might happen based on this. And then if it works out well, are they going to try to do this for other divisions down the road?
Yeah, it does feel like they're the guinea pig in theory. And, I think that's where I mentioned the TV markets. I think having, look at NBC, for example. Yeah, they don't have a lot of those games flexed right now, but Eagles Cowboys could easily be game 262. I believe that's always the last game, or they always hype it up at, Eagles Giants. They could move that to a 425 or an 820 slot. It's the same principle, really. This is going to be the guinea pig for the league, and in case they have a competitive division down the road, maybe they use this for the NFC North. The NFC West, I always thought they would use it for, but I think they like those NFC West matchups early in the season. But if that division stays as competitive as it is, there's the possibility here that you could see a Seattle Seahawks Arizona Cardinals game in 2022 when both teams are, we'll say 9-6 or 10-5 that late in the season. It's going to be a big game with a lot of rings with star quarterbacks like Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray. I think that's what they're using it for. They're going to use it for these divisional games later in the year, and because the NFC East was so bad last year, you can use this with the big TV markets and see how it comes. The NFL is always trying to figure out ways to get ratings. We're seeing this in week 1 with the Dallas Cowboys and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're seeing this in week 4 with the New England Patriots and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're trying to figure out how to get the ratings up, and this may be a way to do it.
NFC East equals ratings. That's why Eagles, Giants, Eagles, Cowboys are always prime time. Although there was no Eagles-Giants prime time this year, there was an Eagles-Dallas prime time early on in the season. Jeff Kerr, Ryan Kerrigan was on the podcast with John Clark, his Takeoff podcast, and he said people who want to write off the Eagles, I don't think they're on top of it like they should be. Is that just players speak coming from a rival to a new team, or is he legitimately saying, I signed here, and you guys aren't seeing what I'm seeing? Lane Johnson kind of indicated the same thing is, hey, our offensive line looks really good. We got Brandon Brooks back. He was cleared. Lane Johnson's been cleared to start practicing. So as I've been saying a lot this offseason, if their line's healthy, and it looks like it is, do the Eagles feel like everyone is overlooking them. And there's Ryan Kerrigan saying, if you're saying this Eagles team isn't good, you really don't know what you're talking about.
He got a first-hand account of this in Week 17 last year because if you remember, Washington was struggling to beat the Eagles before the Eagles decided, you know what, this game means nothing to us. Here you go. Here's the division. We don't want the Giants in. We don't want, Dallas in. Here you go. Here's the division. Like Washington was struggling against them. A playoff team, a division champion was struggling against a makeshift offensive line, at the time a backup quarterback, and a defense that was basically hanging on fumes. And yet, Kerrigan saw firsthand how, I don't want to say because the Eagles weren't talented last year, but I think he knows how talented they can be when you have Brandon Brooks, when you have Lane Johnson, when you have Jason Kelsey, Isaac Seumalo. The left tackle situation is really the only thing we got to figure out on the offensive line. And, Jordan Milano is no slouch here. So the Eagles are going to be good on the offensive line. They're going to be good on the defensive line. And that is usually the key to success in the NFL. And the Eagles have proven that time in and time out. That is why the last couple of times that they have been last in the NFC East, they're first the next year, no matter who the coach is or whoever. It's because they are talented in the trenches and they are deep in the trenches. And I think Ryan Kerrigan's spot on with that. Now, do I think the Eagles are going to win the division? No, not right now, but I think they're going to be very competitive next year.
You tweeted this out, Jeff Kerr, at Jeff Kerr CBS. By the way, you got to follow Jeff. He tweets out just great factoids all throughout the day, just random factoids.
King of unorthodox stats.
Yes, they are very unorthodox stats, like this one. Sack percentage leaders for the Eagles last year. Josh Sweat, 1.49. Brandon Graham, 1.1. Derek Barnett, 1.07. Fletcher Cox, 0.9. Hargrave, 0.7. Ryan Kerrigan, 1.43. And you said, keep in mind, the Eagles were third in the league in sacks without Kerrigan. And if you put him on this list, he'd be number 2. I talked about it with you, I think, earlier this week. Ryan Kerrigan is a more accomplished player than anybody the Eagles have. And I feel like people are almost like yawning at this signing. So tell the people what the sack percentage leaders, what that kind of means.
Okay, so when you have an over 1% sack percentage, you're getting to the quarterback. You're pretty good. Sack percentage is the sacks that you have divided by the total number of defensive snaps you play. Now, it would be higher if I did pass rushing snaps. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to uncover them yet, so they'd be a little higher. But if you're doing total snaps, 1%, that's usually pretty good. And the Eagles had a couple guys over 1% last year. Josh Sweat was a very productive pass rusher for how little he played. Brandon Graham had a great year for his age. Now you're adding Ryan Kerrigan, who was insanely productive in there. You're getting a pretty good bargain out of that. By the way, Vinny Curry was actually over 1% last year, and he didn't have a lot of snaps last year.
Let me ask you this, Jeff. Based on what Jonathan Gannon said yesterday, did you get any indication? Because I could say, okay, well, they played wide 9, and that was what the job was to get to the quarterback. Did you get any sense from Gannon what the defense might look like?
Well, he hasn't really given anything. Like he said, he's just going to play to his player's strength. Well, his player's strengths are getting to the quarterback. I don't think they're going to play a wide 9 per se, but here's one, Mike. How about blitzing more? They might actually blitz more in 2021, something we haven't seen from the Eagles defense in years. Probably since Sean McDermott was here. I mean, Billy Davis blitzed, but they weren't a good pass rushing team when he was here, and they definitely didn't have a good secondary. Schwartz is a very good defense.
They also ran a 3-4 under Billy Davis.
Yeah, exactly. And Schwartz only rushed 4. Like, he did not like to rush 5. I think we could see the days come back where they rush 5 to cover up maybe some holes in the secondary here. And, the Eagles got more than 5 guys that can rush the quarterback. They got 6, honestly. Like, Hassan Ridgeway can do it if they need be. He's not going to be on the field when they do that. But, the potential is there. And I think that's going to be awesome what Jonathan Gannon is doing. He's going to play to their strengths on the defensive line. He's going to play to their strengths through an entire defense. And I've heard a lot of people say this, and I've had people tell me this too. If he wasn't a defensive coach, he may even still be the next head coach in the NFL.
I feel, Jeff, that a lot of people left very impressed with him talking. That's the first time we really heard Jonathan Gannon get the opportunity to answer questions himself. And I felt like that was the takeaway is this guy's really smart. He gets it.
Yeah, he does get it. Like, I think he understands. And you know what? Honestly, Mike, I will say this. if Jonathan Gann can get this defense back to a top 5, top 10 unit, they will compete for the NFC East title. There's no doubt about that. No matter how well Jalen Hurts plays, they will compete for the division title.
Jeff, I feel it's funny you say that because I feel that it's like malpractice right now. Because I think, again, we've chronicled this a lot. I don't think we can hammer it home enough. If their offensive line is healthy, they will be a fine offense. I'm not saying they're going to be the greatest show on turf, but they will be an offense that can compete. But it's malpractice to not shore up this secondary right now. They have to address this.
They have to do something. Like, sign Steven Nelson, do something here. Like, Josiah Scott's just not going to move the needle. And look, Darius Slay's still a good player. I actually think Darius Slay's going to have a huge year under this coordinator. I will say that. But the thing is, he needs help. They need someone there to help this guy. And I honestly don't know what the answer is. Like, it is funny, like, people are trying to connect the dots here with Steven Nelson. Oh, he follows the Eagles, or he liked this post by the Eagles. Well, he follows the Dolphins, too. So I don't want to get too much into that. But it does seem like Steven Nelson is at least getting interest from the Eagles. It feels like Nelson is just waiting until after, the all-season minicamps are over to finally make a decision. He doesn't have to sign with anybody now. And if the Eagles get him, find number 2 cornerback. But I don't know. I just feel like there are other options available in case the Eagles don't go the free agent route.
I'm waiting to see. And by the way, if anybody's going to do it, it's Howie Roseman. So I don't have I'm not skeptical that they won't get it done because of Roseman. I know everybody likes to bang on him, but if there's something that I think is going to happen is he's not going to go into the season with what they have right now. He's smart enough to know that this is inadequate. And I think, Jeff, listening to Kerrigan, listening to Lane Johnson, and Sal Powell said it on our show like 2 weeks ago. Inside that NovaCare complex, they think they can win the division. The Eagles brass thinks that they're better than people outside.
I sure hope that they do think that. You set your bar high. And look, I think the Eagles look at it as the division champion was 7-9 last year. 7-9. It's vulnerable. I know Dallas. To me, Dallas is the favorite because they have Dak Prescott. But I don't know if they can fix their defense or not.
Agree.
We have the same optimism in Jonathan Gannon that Dallas has in Dan Quinn. And Dallas has a right to be optimistic there. But there's just like the Eagles. They didn't do enough to fix up their defense. Micah Parsons is going to cover a lot of holes. They still have problems in their secondary, just like Philadelphia. Honestly, this is why I'm so high on Washington, because their defense is good. And if their offense can show a pulse, they are clearly going to be the team to beat in the NFC East.
All right. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, covers the NFL. We will be doing a lot of NFC East stuff, and we got some things we're working on for the offseason and, of course, in the Eagles season. The Eagles continuing Jonathan Gannon yesterday. For coverage of the Eagles, go to our website, 973ESPN.com, and read Jeff's piece on the NFC East scheduling, and his questions for the NFC West is also posted. So check that out at Jeff Kerr, CBS on Twitter. And Jeff Kerr, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. I feel like we could talk football for like 4 hours.
I could try it one day. I could talk football for 4 hours. You ever want me on for 4 hours, Mike? We'll talk football. We'll go off on a tangent. We'll go off on stats. I'll even mix in why Joel Embiid should be the MVP of the NBA if you really wanted to do it.
All right. Well, if he doesn't get named it, I want you to come up with all the reasons why he should have been named it.
You know what? If on spare time, I'm off this weekend, I probably will do that just to argue with people.
All right, Jeff. Well, have a good weekend, man.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks for having me on, Mike. See you Monday.
All right, Jeff Kerr, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline, and we appreciate him jumping on board. All right, Josh will close out the show with the sound of the day and some thoughts on today's show, the Sixers and the Wizards. And, of course, we got all that coming up, and we got the play-in game tonight. Warriors and Grizzlies on 97.3 ESPN.